Well, some Delta airline employees are suing Land's End over their uniforms, claiming it made them sick. 11 Alive's Elwin Lopez has been going through the lawsuit for us tonight. Elwin?
Yeah, Ron, and the uniforms are advertised as wrinkle-free, stain-resistant, and waterproof. The lawsuit filed today claims that the chemicals used to make them as advertised are actually causing serious health problems. Hair loss, fatigue, rashes. The plaintiffs say those are just some of the issues they are currently having. Land's End got the contract to make the uniforms in 2016. Now the plaintiffs are asking them to recall the clothes and pay damages. Delta saying in a statement tonight that their top priority continues to be the safety of our employees, adding that they invested in a rigorous toxicology study to determine if there was a universal scientific issue with the uniform, saying that the results of the study confirmed our, quote, uniforms meet the highest textile standards, with the exception of the optional flight attendant apron, which was removed from the collection. Now, we also reached out to Land's End. They say they won't comment on any pending litigation. Ron?
All right.